She had a variety of interests, really. She liked photography, didn't she, and poetry.
She loved musicals.
Yeah, she was getting really into musicals.
Music was her thing.
Yeah. Quite sort of loving, really, wasn't she?
And caring. I think that message came out clear and loud at a funeral.
It's coming up to the second anniversary of Ciara Thacker's death. At just 19 years old, she took her own life in her university halls, having struggled with her mental health since the age of 12. Despite years of complex problems documented on her records, at 18 Ciara was left on her own, with no access to the NHS mental health care she'd previously been a recipient of.
When she was 12?
Yeah, 12, 13.
She started self-harming. And then just over the next 6 years, it was in and out of CAMS, self-harming. She was depressed, then she was put on medication, then she stopped the medication.
And basically she was passed from pillar to post, wasn't she?
The Child and Adolescent Mental Health Services, or CAMS, oversee the mental health care of young people in the UK. Latest numbers show that at any given time, there's over 400,000 active referrals. However, CAMS support ends at the cut-off age of 18. At this point, you're considered an adult, but only 24% of patients receive a transition into adult services. The rest are discharged. By 18, Ciara had received no referral to adult services. She declared her mental health issues to her university, but it took over 14 weeks for this to be acknowledged. In this time, she had already attempted suicide once, after returning to campus from the Christmas holidays.
We were angry at the time because the way that came to light was the day after she died, and we went over to Liverpool to collect her belongings,
clear a
room out, and then the late slip that she'd actually attempted to take her life early in February that year.
It's like the world has gone mad and people have just lost sight of the fact that, you know, how can you leave school in July, move away from home to a strange city? You've got a history of problems, mental health problems, which incidentally she declared all over her application form. And then she walks into A&E, and that is not an immediate red flag.
With no centralised support, several points of access allowed Ciara to slip through the cracks. Despite being assessed by mental health nurses at the hospital, Ciara's notes were never sent on to her GP. A referral to get her to adult services was still out of her reach. She took her own life in May of 2018 at just 19 years old, still waiting for a first appointment with the university's mental health team.
She was trying to get some help from all these people. And then nobody else was helping her, so I just think she gave up.
Stories like Ciara's are unfortunately not entirely unique. Every year, thousands of young people lose access to the only mental health support they know as they reach CAMS cut-off age.
Children's mental health problems are a serious thing. A lot of the young people that get referred to CAMS services have got quite difficult problems which have been getting worse. On the whole, if young people and families engage and work with us, we can stop that decline and often start making things better. If in the early stages of that process people stop getting help because they reach a certain age, then things are likely to deteriorate again.
Professor David Cottrell is a specialist in child mental health and the co-author of the influential NICE guidelines on management of depression in children and young people. His recommendations state that care for a young person should continue until discharge is appropriate for their situation, even in the case where the cut-off age is reached.
The lack of resource in adult mental health services often means that you've got to have quite a severe problem to be prioritised. It can still be the case that a young person who's considered to have a serious enough problem to be seen by CAMS gets to 18 and adult services consider that it's not serious enough for them to pick it up. And that's not because they don't see the problem, but because they have got limited resources and they can't see everybody and they've got to make difficult gateway decisions.
This is Aya. She was discharged from CAMS when approaching her 18th birthday, despite being told she was a complex case who would benefit from long-term support.
When I moved to Leeds, I was only 17, so I was referred to CAMS, and that happened through A&E, so it was pretty quick. It was just a few weeks until I got to see someone, and I was with a transition service, so I felt pretty confident in the fact that I would have support once I turned 18. I was told, we're going to stay with you until you're with an adult mental health service. I missed an appointment that was after Christmas break, because of that, she just sent my GP a discharge letter saying that, yeah, we don't think she's coming back, so we're going to discharge her from our care, and I still have to be referred to some kind of other mental health service. I don't know what's going to happen. I have a feeling this is going to take a really long time.
Now 18, Aya has been unable to access the adult services. With huge waiting lists and heightened entry criteria, she's been left feeling that she's a victim of an overwhelmed system.
And I feel like I have to prove that I need that help, because like, if I'm not at immediate risk, am I really a priority?
Priority is difficult to determine. Estimates say around 1 in 6 17 to 19-year-olds suffer from a mental disorder. Those with mental disorders or a history of self-harm are at a significantly higher risk of suicide, and over recent years, the suicide rates amongst young people have been increasing. It's estimated that 90% of all suicide victims were suffering from a mental disorder at the time of death, and proper treatment is known to be a preventative tool. So what's the missing link between identifying the problem but not always providing treatment?
Well, the glib answer is finances. If there were more money, we could have a more nuanced approach and choose the right time for transition to each person. But if we put that to one side, there are other really important factors at play.
Since 2015, over £2.3 billion extra has been dedicated to the mental health budget in the UK. Despite this, mental health services are widely understood to be suffering under a lack of sufficient funding.
If you look at the figures in the King's Fund reports, it actually alludes to the fact that the mental health trusts have lost funding. And the ones who have actually seen increase in funding, the funding increase has been very slow. I don't think it's enough by any means, and I don't think the funding allows the mental health trusts to really step up the services to the same level as you would expect if we had a chest infection or a physical illness of the same kind.
Previously the mental health lead for the local clinical commissioning group, Dr. Kamal Sidhu has a strong interest in improving mental health care. He's spoken out before about IAPT, the Improving Access to Psychological Therapies model, which is the first step into adult care for most. He notes that without enough resources to meet demand, patients are often either turned away or so dissatisfied with treatment that they drop out.
Essentially what we have now is a single point of access. So to enter into all those remit of different therapies, be it CBT, low intensity, be it the high intensity therapies, if we look at the figures, there's a massive documented dropout rate from the point of being advised that we think that IAPT therapies will benefit you. So 1/3 of the people are really dropping out at that stage.
Rare injections of money are not enough to solve the problem, explains one ex-IAPT counsellor who would prefer to remain anonymous. He explains that under the pressure that comes with limited funds, the quality of service also suffers.
When IAPT came along, the government was putting in a lot of money. There's always the drive to say, well, are we getting our bang for our buck? And so, of course, then everything started becoming about the measures. Everything became more and more therapy by numbers almost. A manualized process. You do this, then you do that, then you do the other. And then they can get through a lot more in the day. Churn them through. And oh, look, when it comes to the target, look at all these people that we're seeing and getting through the service.
The target-driven culture may be driving some people away from the support they fought to access, but the reality is that with such high demand, considerations for efficiency must be made. Young people exiting CAMS are just a drop in the ocean, with hundreds of thousands of adults all relying on the same system. However, for now, any thoughts of reform have had to be paused, as grave new concerns around coronavirus take to the forefront.
There's a real worry that after this, if we don't give enough focus to mental health, it'll be a huge loss for the society and for the economy due to the eventual impact on the productivity. The mental health referrals have not been stopped at all. We have continued to refer them to secondary care, to the crisis teams, to these link workers. I think there's probably been some reluctance to refer to IAPT type services if the patients can wait, because patients themselves understand that there's very little they can do.
The issue is complex enough without a global pandemic. There's no way to know what kind of toll all this might take on the already limited access points. Whilst the population is told to stay inside to stay safe, there may now be time to consider the safety of the UK's young people, locked outside of the mental health system.